Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're just going to let another minute or so pass as people arrive. We've got a nice turnout today. We want to include everyone. And it's nice to see so many new faces. Welcome. Welcome to Zen Peacemakers. I'd welcome everybody by name, but I think that would take me 20 minutes, so I'm not going to do that this morning. So we'll do it as a group. I see a few folks I know. Nice to have you join us today. Let's go ahead and start. Uh, this is another offering of Zen Peacemakers as part of our mostly weekly program of Zen Peacemakers circles. And we really try to move around the periphery of the various interest areas for us, whether it's war and peace and conflict, homelessness, hunger, gender politics, pure dharma, the arts, the environment, uh, whatever that might be. So today, I'm so happy we have our friend Connie Zweig, who is a retired therapist, but she clearly has not retired at all, and she is still very busy and very active. And she's going to talk about the inner work of age, shifting from role to soul. I imagine many of you are familiar with Connie. She's well published, and I recommend her books, and she may say more about that. Letting everyone know we are recording, but we will. Connie's going to lead us a few times into small breakout dyads discussion, brief, 10 minutes or so, and we're going to do this by setting them up in just two people if we can dyads. If you prefer not to be part of that, send me a chat and I'll try to. We've got nearly 40 people now, so I'll try to manage that and not put you into one. And also know that those small breakout groups are not recorded. So we want always for those to be confidential, for people to be able to relax and feel comfortable sharing from the heart, as it were. So um, I think with that, I'm going to mute myself and pass the talking stick to our friend Connie Zweig. Connie?
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me here. Actually, can you put me back on gallery view so I can see everybody? Thank you. Yeah, prefer that. I'd love to see the faces. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time and your presence today and your interest in shifting from role to soul. We're going to get into what that is really about in just a minute. I'm going to start my PowerPoint. And as Jeff said, we'll have a few breakouts and then we'll have time at the end for a conversation. So if you have questions or comments or insights, we'll have time to share those at the end. And for those of you who don't have your cameras turned on, I'd really love it if you would make yourselves visible so we can build a little temporary community here this morning or this evening or wherever you are in the world. Hi, there go the cameras. Hi, everybody. Okay, so here we go. So some of you may know me as the author of Meeting the Shadow, Romancing the Shadow, The Inner Work of Age, and Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path. I'm sometimes known as the shadow expert. And so you might have wondered what does that have to do with aging and becoming an elder? It turns out that our unconscious fears and images about age actually shape how we age. Now, let me say that again because I was astonished when I discovered this myself. Our unconscious beliefs, feelings, and attitudes about old age help to determine how we experience it. And I learned that when I read decades of research from a psychologist at Yale. And that discovery made me realize that I had another book to write, How We Meet the Shadows of Age. That means if we can detect what's hidden in the personal unconscious or shadow about this transition, we can do something about it. We can engage the inner work of age and reimagine what this new stage of life, this new longevity will be like for us. So you may have asked, what will I do with all this time? Or more deeply, who am I now? And if you feel lost or disoriented, if you want to serve something larger than yourself, or you simply wish for more self-knowledge or more self-acceptance, more meaning or contribution, then you can try the inner work of age. And you can discover how to reorient by turning within. Many Zazen teachers know how to do that in a particular way. I'm suggesting a little bit different way to add to your sitting practice. Attuning to your spiritual longing and learning how to move through this passage of later life as a rite, releasing old forms, facing the unknown, and emerging renewed as an elder, filled with vitality and purpose. But the path onto this stage of life is filled with inner obstacles, and so it must be walked with intention. It requires us to bring forward the traits and gifts that served us earlier, our self-awareness, our sense of social justice, deep empathy, embeddedness in nature, consensus building skills, creative know-how, and spiritual thirst. And as we gather these fruits of our labors within us, we begin to prepare to do the inner work of age. But I don't mean merely doing more or doing differently. I don't use reinvention the way that many experts do from the outside in. My emphasis, rather, is on an internal, less familiar terrain. The subtle yearnings that may appear in images and fantasies, and the ways we respond or fear to respond to those messages, and the symbolic meanings we glean from them. And as we learn the psychological and spiritual practices for later life, we deepen our self-knowledge and we reimagine age for ourselves, eventually shifting from denial to awareness, from self-rejection to self-acceptance, from obligation to flow, from holding on to letting go, from distraction to presence, and from role to soul. And that last term was coined by spiritual teacher Ram Dass to refer to a shift in identity from our spiritual nature, to our spiritual nature, from whatever we think we are to our spiritual nature, and whatever you imagine that to be. So this is the deeper dimension of age, the universal journey that includes the unfolding of our spiritual authenticity and even the unfolding of advanced stages of human development, that are described in every spiritual tradition as the purpose of late life. When we cross a passage to become an adult, change careers, marry, divorce, have kids, suffer an illness, we also change archetypes. We step into a new life pattern. For most people, this is not a conscious process because our society doesn't offer adult rites of passage. The shift from hero to elder, or from role to soul, may become more conscious when past roles and responsibilities fall away. Internally, the ego's lifelong identity as the doer may be shattered, and a primary source of meaning and purpose is lost. And as a result, our lives may feel like we're in midair between trapezes, unable to let go of the past or to see the future. In my late 60s, I began to feel disoriented as I contemplated retirement from my clinical practice. And I began to ask, who am I, if not Dr. Connie, therapist, author, shadow expert? I realized I was facing a late life identity crisis. And even though I'd been meditating for many decades and knew my essential nature, all these questions arose again with intensity. And as I began to research this book, I met hundreds of people, and they all expressed this sense of disorientation, feeling marginalized, invisible, and unimportant. Many couldn't let go of the past to be fully present now. These people were also undergoing a late life identity crisis, asking, who am I? What are my values? What do I believe? What matters most? How can I give back to the common good? When we ask these questions in a midlife crisis, the response tends to be a change in roles. We change career, or we change spouse, or we change location. But in later life, a change in role is not sufficient. As I began to realize that late life is a call to a rite of passage, and to teach people these practices, they told me that they discovered how to center themselves and find a new orientation in space and time. One woman told me that when she turned 70, she couldn't find an internal GPS. She had no navigator and no destination until she learned, with the inner work of age, how to orient towards soul. So you can reorient by learning shadow work and contemplative practice. You can discover how to move through the passage as a 3-step rite: releasing past forms, facing the unknown, and emerging renewed. Letting go to be present may be familiar to those of us who do sitting practice, but I'm building bridges here to our local identities. So each step is a rite that has its own challenges: letting go, hanging on, grasping onto an unknown future. And for me, this is an ongoing practice. Letting go first of the therapist role, helping others. I wrote a lot about my process of retirement from clinical work and what this meant to my identity as a doer, an achiever, and a giver. And then letting go of the writer, accepting that this was a last book. It turned out it wasn't. But accepting that Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path is my last book. and that this form of service is coming to an end. At a deeper level, I'm practicing letting go of my identity as smart, competent, master of the universe, as my husband calls it. I'm working on releasing control of outcomes. And my life review enabled me to see it was never in my control. That was my ego's illusion all along. So, like many of you, I've stepped into a lot of uncertainty as the structure of my day dissolves and the meanings shift, and the capacity to serve takes different forms. If we do the inner work and we cross the threshold from midlife hero to late life elder, we emerge into a new beginning. And that inner work continues for me with shadow work and spiritual practice. So, what keeps us from fulfilling the promise of this stage of life? If you are used to attuning to your inner dialogue or your feelings or your bodily sensations, you may have noticed what you were saying to yourself as I've been speaking, or how your body was responding. So when I described the 3 steps of a rite of passage, what did you say to yourself when I said we need to step into the unknown? Sounds ideal, not real. Maybe for others, not for me. What about all the bad stuff, the illness and decline? Who am I to wish for such a good life? I can't handle not knowing what to do, or I have a traumatic past, or I can't afford all this navel gazing. These voices stem from what I call inner obstacles or shadow characters, which resist transition and impede us from discovering the hidden power of late life. They reinforce our denial and keep us stuck in archaic identities, which can lead to an absence of aliveness and even depression. Personal shadow is a term coined by renowned Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung to refer to the personal unconscious.
It protects them. So, yeah.
Susan, you need to mute, please. So the shadow develops in each of us as children as we identify with socially acceptable traits like, say, politeness, generosity, caretaking, to find love and acceptance from adults. And in this way, we form a conscious ego and we banish other traits like rudeness, anger, stinginess, centeredness into the unconscious shadow. Somebody needs to mute. Susan, I can hear you talking.
Sorry.
So this is how the ego and the shadow develop in tandem. If our sadness is shamed, it's exiled into the shadow. If our anger is punished, it's banished too. If our musical talent or artistic talent is dismissed and not lived out, it gets buried in the shadow. And because the shadow is beneath the threshold of awareness, we can't gaze at it directly. It's a blind spot in our field of vision. So with shadow work, we learn how to listen to the inner voices of shadow characters that lead us to do the same things we've always done without the results we want. And as we learn to work with them in a particular way, we begin to change the outcome. So today we're going to meet some of the shadows of age together. And in particular, those images and fantasies and fears that are influencing us outside of awareness and stopping us from finding the treasures as we age. So in the context of age, most of us learn that being independent, quick, productive, and strong are highly valued and result in rewards of approval or status. On the other hand, we learn their opposite traits, dependent, slow, unproductive, and weak, are devalued in our society and result in disapproval and shame. And so we dread the loss of these socially acceptable traits as we age and naturally slow down, do less, and need others more. If our associations with late life remain outside of our awareness, then we're blind to them. Like my 89-year-old friend who told me that he didn't want to be with old people because he wasn't like them. We deny our reality and we reject that part of ourselves. But as we learn to identify the shadow characters, we can attune to the inner voices and detect those that can be intuitive guides for us and those that can sabotage our intentions. For example, we might hear a whisper, I need more time alone. I need less time alone. I want to write the memoir, but I'm afraid. I need to slow down, but I don't want to feel useless. These conflicting inner voices make it difficult to hear the signal through the noise, the inner guidance that speaks a deeper truth. When we center ourselves and quiet our minds and attune to this internal guidance, we can expand our self-knowledge to include that which has been excluded before. A deferred dream, a secret desire, a hidden talent. And now, when the ego no longer reigns supreme, we can open ourselves and allow these banished feelings and fantasies to be heard. So let me pose my first question to you. What about old, the word old, is stuffed into your dark room? What stereotypes, fantasies, and images about aging are you carrying unknowingly? What creative or spiritual aspirations are hiding there that you could reclaim now? So how do we typically meet the shadows of age? In dreams, when a part of us acts out in a dark or destructive way. In moods, such as feeling invisible, powerless, irrelevant. In unacceptable parts of ourselves that erupt, like a sarcastic remark, I can't believe she wore that at her age. In projections onto others, who does he think he is at 80 years old? When we feel humiliated and ashamed, I'm so embarrassed to be treated like I'm helpless. So we'll want to sharpen our senses so that we are awake enough to notice when the shadow erupts. And this process of slowly bringing the shadow into awareness, shedding light on the darkness, forgetting and remembering it again, is the nature of shadow work. Eventually, we can learn to create a conscious relationship with it and reduce its power to unconsciously sabotage us. So you may have noticed that you have attitudes or beliefs about age that you were unaware of before. Maybe you observed how you felt as I express them. So you may uncover surprises about yourself today, and as a result, you may have more choice to act differently. Here are the most common inner obstacles that I found in my research and that I explore in the book. If we identify with youth and deny age, we're unaware of our ageism against ourselves. This is known as internalized ageism, and I call the shadow character the inner ageist. If we identify with self-image, success, or other midlife values, we miss the opportunity to connect with the shadow and our essential spiritual nature. If we identify with doing and deny our need to slow down to self-reflect, we keep doing what we've always done, rather than experiencing aging as a spiritual practice. I call this shadow the doer or the driver. If we identify with a narrow band of time, without a wide view of our past, present, and future journey, we remain stuck in denial of the past or fear of the future. And you don't have to worry about writing this all down. It's in the book. If we identify with regret about the past, feel like a victim of our history, then we miss the opportunity to release the past, give and receive forgiveness, and live and die in peace. If we identify with past religious or spiritual beliefs and don't re-examine them so that they're congruent with who we are now, then we won't repair our relationship to spirit or our Buddha nature, to our place in the greater universe. If we identify with a narrow, separate sense of self, we lose the opportunity to cultivate our connection to something larger than ourselves and move into higher stages of awareness. If our evolution is blocked by any of these obstacles, we can't cross the threshold to become an elder and complete the rite of passage. So, Jeff, this is the first breakout room. And it's going to be two people, dyads, exploring the question, who am I? What is your source of identity? Is it your appearance, achievements, roles, beliefs, values, your family? And what happens as these change? Who are you without them? Can you let them go and explore a deeper identity? So the first thing you'll do in your breakout room is choose a speaker and listener and explore the timeless question, who am I? So speaker one will explore first how you commonly answer, who am I? And then follow these questions. And you each have 4 minutes, and then you switch to speaker two, and that person has 4 minutes. And Zoom will give you a warning that the breakout room will be closing. These, as Jeff said, these will not be recorded, so they're confidential. And I hope that you can take this opportunity to really attune to yourself and explore your answers honestly.
Okay, Connie, people should be coming back now.
Thank you.
Barbara T., I'm so sorry I pushed the wrong button. I wanted to talk another minute. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you all for participating and reconsidering, recontemplating this timeless question of who am I? And I look forward at the end to hearing from you about it. So I'm going to pick up again now with the program. So for some of us, the call to age consciously or become an elder is a messenger that awakens in us a yearning for something more, a longing to go beyond a role, a fleeting identity, and connect with another purpose, something larger than ourselves. It also may stir a desire to turn from doing to being, to slow down and contemplate the lessons learned from the life we've lived and from the life we have not lived. But others will deny and resist the call. The purpose of my work is to investigate the resistance to inner work in all of my books, and in this book, to the inner work of age. So disoriented, we can't imagine a life without the structure and purpose of work. Disconnected, we feel empty as we try to imagine what will fill our days. And disliking our new appearance or denying our limitations, we feel nostalgia for the past or fear of the future. So we're blocked by these inner obstacles, and they stop us from step one of the rite of passage, letting go. An inner obstacle arises, our identification with our doing or our self-image. Unconsciously, our worth is determined by our success or appearance. So what would it mean for a CEO to stop being a CEO? Or a teacher, therapist, mom, doctor, salesperson? What would it mean to put down a role, slow the pace, and look within? And what stops him or her from stopping? Maybe the loss of a lifelong role is too disorienting to face for some people. Maybe she fears becoming irrelevant. Maybe he fears becoming dependent. And they both fear facing mortality. Other inner obstacles stop us from taking step two, staying in liminal space, being with the uncertainty for a while to see what emerges. And other inner obstacles stop us from step three, emerging renewed. So the part of us in denial, which I call the inner ageist, tells the CEO if he's no longer a young, triumphant provider, then he's not fit to do anything else. Or if she is no longer an attractive, persuasive earner, she's not fit to do anything else. And so they just keep doing the same thing, the only thing they know how to do. For each of us, these choices are very personal. We have different needs, values, pleasures, financial circumstances. And for that reason, you're not going to find me advocating for a particular plan. Except for this. Late life is a time to turn inward and make a transition from a heroic focus on doing to an elder's focus on being. But it's not necessary to stop doing in order to stop being. Start being. The evolution of role to soul is not about what we do, but about how we do it. It's about the state of mind or the quality of awareness in which we do it. So the question of what we do implies this deeper question, who am I? Do we identify with the doer in heroic mode, and are we controlled by it? For example, I'm not enough. I don't have enough. I need to do more. I need to accomplish great things. I'm a failure if I stop. Or do we act on behalf of something greater than the ego's agenda as an elder? So how we imagine late life may actually be more important than what we do. Negative beliefs and images that are hidden in the shadow influence our health as we age. I mentioned this as the beginning for what stimulated me to write this book, because I found this research just mind-blowing. Yale psychologist Becca Levy demonstrated that our exposure through the lifespan to ageist stereotypes is internalized in the brain, mind, and body. And this leads to self-images like the inner ageist, the shadow character in us that rejects old and all the changes that go with it. And therefore, we're turning the target of ageist projection against ourselves, resulting in self-hate and shame and perhaps depression. And these unconscious fears and beliefs affect our physical health, mental health, memory, and will to live. Over many decades, Becca Levy has shown this in longitudinal studies. She tested this idea for the transition to retirement, when the loss of a role identity is so obvious. In a study of more than 1,000 older adults over 23 years, she found that those who unconsciously held positive images about physical health during retirement lived 4.5 years longer than others. And those who held positive images of mental health during retirement lived 2.5 years longer. So our unconscious beliefs and fears about age affect our longevity. How we imagine late life through the lifespan, even unconsciously, shapes how we experience it. So let's use retirement as an example. Many of us have internalized unconscious images about what it looks like. And then some people try to reinvent themselves from the outside in with different kinds of doing. But new roles may be more of the same. They may prop up a past persona and require the same emotional or creative sacrifices. And when this is the case, new roles rob us of the deeper shift in identity from role to soul. So if most people enjoy years after retirement, why are we so afraid of it? Our inner obstacles are unconscious identification with youth and success and doing are the guardians at the threshold. Here's an example. My client George, at 73, continued to manage his insurance firm. And although he was bone tired and missing time with his grandkids, he didn't want to slow down. When I asked him why, he said both his grandfather and his father became useless in retirement. Grandpa watched TV all day, and when Dad quit his job, he did nothing but play bridge and eat. And they both seemed sad and useless, so I dread retiring. George came to see that the men in his family had embodied an unconscious image of an old man sitting in a rocker watching TV, and he carried that image through his life. So he was unable to switch gears and move toward letting go because he believed people in retirement were useless. When men are no longer providers, who are we? Gradually, with shadow work, he was able to witness the useless retiree. He began to help his children learn to read and enrolled in a watercolor class. When it was clear that his vice president could replace him, he retired. He told me, I feel a sense of freedom I didn't know was possible. When I'm painting, it's as if I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do. So illness is another example in which we quickly change roles, perhaps becoming a patient or a caregiver. And so who am I arises again. Do you identify with the doer in a midlife heroic mode? Do you identify with patient or caregiver, which is also contracting your identity? So I'd like you to choose for this breakout room, either retirement or illness or loss, whichever one has affected you most deeply in losing a role identity. And who is the shadow character that's blocking your transition to deeper identity? What are the consequences of identifying with that shadow and listening to it now? Again, you'll choose the speaker and the listener. And I'm running behind schedule. I don't know, Jeff, can we change this from 10 minutes to 8 minutes? Or
Sure.
are you already set up?
No, I can change it right now.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's
yeah, it's
shorten
good.
this.
It's changed.
Let's shorten this because I want time for Q&A at the end. So you choose the speaker and listener, and the speaker responds. Who is the shadow character blocking your deeper identity, and what are the consequences of that? Okay. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm really curious to hear about how that went for you. So I'm going to finish the slides and then we'll have a conversation. Actually, hang on 1 second. I clicked the wrong thing. Okay. So I hope you had a little taste of a deeper identity than the doer. If this is uncomfortable for you, see if you can explore the resistant shadow character. And if it's comfortable, you can practice embodying it more. By continuing to turn your attention toward your spiritual nature, moment to moment. And with the inner work of age, we can make this shift, dropping our conditioned personas and habitual fears and automatic reactions and choosing instead to be fully real and transparent. We can make the shift from denial to awareness, from doing to being, from self-rejection to self-acceptance, from holding on to letting go, from obligation to flow, from hero to elder, and from role to soul. Age is our curriculum. So the inner work of age is created as a rite of passage, and you discover the divine messengers, how to do retirement and illness as spiritual practices, how to do a life review, emotional repair, and spiritual repair, and how to bring this new stage of awareness into activism, into service for the common good. If you're interested in reading it with others, I've organized wisdom circles that are book study groups. They're free, they're online, they're leaderless, and people are doing the practices together. Each chapter in the inner work of age has practices. So if you're interested in a wisdom circle to study that book together and explore aging in community, you can shoot me an email, conniezweig@gmail.com. Please put wisdom circle in the subject line and give me your time zone and I will connect you with others. Please don't send me a long email because I get hundreds of them every day. And then the other book, Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path, The Dance of Darkness and Light in Our Search for Awakening, is also forming book study circles. And if that's interesting to you, you can put shadow work or spiritual shadow work in the subject line and send me your time zone so that I know who to connect you with. And again, these groups are free. They're organized by region, they're leaderless. People are rotating the facilitator in the group. You decide your logistics for how often and all of that. And some of these groups have lasted for several years now because they're forming deep friendships. I also wanted to point out, since this is a Zen community, there is a Zen-inspired retirement community for elders in Northern California now. It's called Enso Village. And there's one organizing in Southern California that will probably be ready in about 3 years. It's called Enso Verde, E-N-S-O, Verde. You can Google them, and they have online meetings informing people and starting to build community now to get ready for that launch. If you are interested in any other workshops for me, you can go to conniezweig.com. I'm going to stop the share. And I will, and so I look forward to seeing you again. But now we're going to take 10 minutes, the grace of Jeff, and hear your comments, your insights, your concerns, what came up for you as you began this work. If you would go to the reactions button and click your electronic hand so I can see you, that would be helpful. So what was inspiring? What was scary? what came up for you around your ability to continue to practice this. Suzanne?
For me, it is very inspiring to, and I realize that I become relaxed to just to say I'm Buddha nature, you know, and there was a burden on my shoulders, and I wasn't aware of that. And at the moment, I can play with all these commands. It functions. It's very, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yes, I think, part of becoming an elder is the freedom from obligations and shoulds. But let me clarify this, because somebody just wrote in the chat they have to go be the doer to make the evening meal. So the shift is not about becoming a couch potato and doing nothing. The shift is internal. It's a shift in your awareness about how you're doing what you're doing. If someone looked at me from the outside, I look like a workaholic. But my internal experience of my doing now is pretty spacious. It's pretty free and not really attached to the outcomes, which is very different from, when I published books in my 40s and I was into the doing and the success and all the numbers and everything. So this is not about how it looks to someone from the outside. It's about how it feels on the inside. What is an elder's quality of awareness? What are you identifying with as you're doing whatever it is you're doing? Whether it's coming to this class or playing with your grandkids or working in social justice or writing your memoir or learning how to paint, whatever it is, what quality of awareness and identification, what's the source of identity as you're doing what you're doing? And just to continue asking yourself that. And, moving your attention from the doer as you ask yourself that. Does that make sense? Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Thank you for today. It was really powerful, first of all. But I just wanted to do a plug for the Wisdom Group. Some of our group is on this call today, and we formed almost a year ago, and it has been such a powerful and supportive and nurturing group to be a part of. And I think the biggest thing is that sometimes this work can be really isolating and feel really isolating. And I can't even tell you how many times we've said, me too, like to hear ours happens to be all women, although that just is how it transpired. But so many cries of me too. And that's just been incredibly gratifying and supporting. And I think we've really grown in friendship together, as you've said, and it's really powerful. So I encourage anybody who's wanting to do this work together, that it is there's so much power in it. So
I'm
thank you.
So glad to hear that. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, the communities are in many countries now, all over the world, because this book came out a couple years ago. So these circles have really grown, and I'm just really, really feeling gratitude for how that's unfolded. Isolation is a big issue, so thank you for that.
Is there a circle in Germany? Do you know?
I can look at my list. I have lots of requests from GMT. So it's not by country, it's by region, and I can look and see. There may not be a new one forming, but just send me your email and your time zone. Anyone else? Hi, Wendy.
Hi, I'll say something. I just want to say I really appreciate you holding this today and holding on to the work that you're doing. And I'm part of that group that Barbara just talked about, and there are a few of us on the call. It, no matter, I could reread the book probably 100 times, and each time I'll get something out of it. So this has been helpful. And I really just the last thing you said, I think the whole workshop has been prepping me for that last thing you just said about it's not so much about being the doer. Like she was kind of shifting into her role, and I got that. I was like, yeah, she's going to go off and be her doer role, But then the way you just said that, it's not so much that, it's how you're doing it really rang a bell and really resonated. And that's kind of what I'm reaching for in the room in the dark that I'm in right now. That felt like something familiar. So I really appreciate you saying that and
Oh, good.
holding the circle.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, George. You need to unmute. Hi.
Yes. Hi, Connie. First of all, I just want to say I've read your book many months ago, and I completely loved it. I loved it because you've taken a complex subject and you've made it so, I dare say, so simple to understand in English. It's an academic work, but it's not written in academies. It's written in English, so I was able to grasp it. I'm in the line of work where I'm a mindset coach. I help retirees find a new beginning. And I read a lot of material in this space. And yours is in the top 5 of all books that I have because of the significance of what you say, the hero's journey and now the elder. And it's true, it's not about the doer in the physical sense, it's that internal shift. And so it's amazing. And I've been trying desperately to get onto one of your Zoom calls, but you're California based and your timing is the middle of the night for me. So when I saw this, I said, timing is perfect. I'm on it. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you for the work you do.
George, thank you. Thank you. And is this book behind you something you want to plug?
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I wrote this book about 2 years ago, and it's about there is another word for courage, and I kind of use Brene Brown's work in that sense. You need courage to unretire. I'm into this thing of we got another 30 years to go. Granted, the paradox is we could die any day. But we have 30 years to go. And what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? Mary Oliver, right? That sort of stuff. So how can you find a new identity and a new purpose in your life?
Right. Beautiful.
That's what I do. So there is also an acronym: discover, assimilate, rewire, expand.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I would just add to that, the world is in such a struggling and scary place right now. We need elders. The world needs our wisdom, our life experience, our know-how in the context of what George is saying, and in the context of Zen peacemakers and activism, elder activism. So, and we are not going to do our activism the way we did it in our 20s, out of projection and anger and fear. We're going to do our activism with the elder's quality of awareness now, which for me has more grief in it and more sorrow and a recognition of my own limitations. But that doesn't mean I'm giving up. It doesn't mean I'm pulling back. It means that I'm doing it not as the doer, right? I'm doing it as part of community, as part of my interconnectedness to all living beings. Okay, Bruce, you get the last comment.
Thank you, Connie.
Yeah, thank you, Connie. I've read your Meeting the Shadow in the past and have been on the journey for quite a while. And I think sometimes we get so caught up with either or, am I a doer or a beer? But I think if we are a beer, then we can do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So Jeff, I guess we're ready to close. A deep bow of gratitude to you and to Zen Peacemakers for all that you're not doing.
Thank you for being our guest and our guide today. Much appreciated. And thank you to everyone who stuck with us for the hour and a half plus. Wonderful, wonderful. And come see us for other events. We're usually every week, and we offer the Way of Counsel as well, and then in-person bearing witness retreats coming up in 2024. So all that information can be seen on the newsletter. So there's my little advertising plug. So with
Great.
that, I wish everybody a safe and healthy and happy day. Take care of yourselves. And as we like to say, take care of someone else too. So